So on Saturday, I was doing some tape study, and I stumbled across this fun footage of James Toney sparring at Wildcard Gym. And sometimes I feel like I've seen every piece of footage there is about all these famous boxers and everything on YouTube, but I'd never seen this one before. And I got a chance to watch it, and as usual, James Toney impressed me. I think he's one of the best defensive fighters of the last 50 years. I think he's a throwback. I'd love to see him thrown into a whole bunch of legendary matches, according with my guy Bernard Hopkins. But let's talk about some of his skills here. Let's use this as an opportunity to talk about positioning. Let's use this as an opportunity to talk about pairing attacks. Let's use this as an opportunity to talk about layering in defense and rhythm and proactive defense. James Toney is a master of all of these things. He has such an efficient boxing style. I love watching professional fighters, very good fighters, spar because you get to see them comfortable. You get to see them playing with things. They're not just using their A game, they're frequently trying things out. I love watching the David Tua and Evander Holyfield sparring leading up to the Mike Tyson fight. And there are all sorts of others. Sometimes I feel like you can learn more about the system and the way that a pro thinks and applies the system if you're watching them utilize it with lower stakes in a sparring setting than just in a fight. And we're going to talk about some of the fun principles and tactics we see on display here today. You may not like it, but this is what peak male performance looks like. So we'll watch each of these in normal speed first, and then I'll slow them down. I'll talk about what my eyes can see. Right off the bat in this first exchange here, we can see James Toney really doing something that I say to my guys: make them miss, make them pay. It's not enough to just make somebody miss. That's just carnival boxing. You need to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position where you can punish them for trying to attack you. You can take advantage of those openings. I'm really jealous. You guys have heard me say this on this channel before. Jiu-jitsu folks have this wonderful term, and it's position before submission. We don't have that rhyme, but we have some alliteration where we can say position before punch. And you can see in this clip when James Toney loses position, he has that open side angle taken on him. He recovers position first while proactively defending before getting back to a stance that he can be offensive out of. So if we slow this down, let's talk through what we're seeing here. You see James Toney fade away, little pull counter from that cross, and he immediately comes back with his own cross, just like Floyd Mayweather does out of that half guard. You see he punches in combination. He brings that drag shot to the body as he swings his head back around to recover position. He's just out of range for that jab to follow through and do any damage. Call that an exit strategy. He feints in, he jabs right at the right hand, occupying that lane. Proactive defense, catches the jab, slips the right, rolls under the 3. You can see his opponent here takes that open side angle. James Toney changes levels because that's a coverall defense. If somebody's outside your line of sight, you can't see that. He gets out of the way of the right hand. Proactively, he gets his own right hand up to protect himself from that following shot, the left hook. And just like that, with that one step back, he's got his opponent in front of him again. Let's watch that in full speed now that we know what we're looking at. Good. Punches in combination, has an exit strategy, jabs at the chest, recovers position, proactive defense, and he's back into a 50-50 on the line. Moving into the next part of this video, we see James Toney catching and pitching off that body shot, once again pairing hooks and uppercuts. And if we slow this down, we can see all the good work going on here. Catches the left on his shoulder, catches the right on his elbow, immediately throws 3 punches. The 2 shots to the body miss, but the 3 upstairs lands. James Toney catches the jab stepping in, but then because he's got a good strong base and good strong posture, he's in a position to make that right hand miss. I talk to my guys all the time and I say, what are you supposed to do when somebody hits you? Well, if every time somebody hits you, you freeze up, or it acts like a reset button, or you wallow in that moment, or dwell on it too long, then you're gonna get hit with the next 2 or 3 shots. The best thing you can do when somebody hits you is keep doing whatever you were gonna do. If you were gonna hit them, hit them. If you were gonna continue to defend, all right? And then take a mental note of what you got hit with, why you got hit with it, and try not to let yourself be in that position a second time. James Toney is wonderful at this. He pulls back from that 2, and then you see him here after getting tagged do some proactive defense, where he's moving and slipping, and he's defending shots that might not necessarily be coming, but it's better for you to defend a shot that doesn't show up than for you not to defend a shot that does. In this next clip here, you can see James Toney's efficiency of movement and his just absolute positional comfort, all right? I always tell people it's like jumping rope. If you're a really good athlete, but your skill at jumping rope is poor, then you're gonna be swinging your arms, you're gonna be jumping really, really high and tucking your knees, and even if you're a really good athlete, you're gonna be exhausted way before somebody who might be a worse athlete than you, but whose skill at jumping rope is very, very high, who's just barely getting over that rope, they're just barely twisting their wrists because they're not using any energy to get over that rope. They've developed efficiency in this movement. This also brings up the point of carnival boxing that I talk about a lot. By the time you're an intermediate competitor, an open class amateur or something like that, you can make somebody miss easy. You can run away from somebody, you can make them miss big forever. The real challenge of boxing is making somebody miss barely so that you're in a position both with your feet and with your posture to be able to take advantage of that opening in their defenses, to be able to hit them back. Anybody can dip and dive around. That's a carnival trick, all right? But if you want to get to the high level of the sport, you need to make them miss, make them pay. You need to be there. And you can see that here from James Toney. Barely miss, barely miss, barely miss, barely miss, barely miss. He's honed in on exactly where those lanes sit, on exactly the size of a fist and the size of his head. And right now he's just sparring here, but we see in real fights, you look at the Iran-Barkley fight, he is there to punish somebody when they miss him. And in this clip here, you can see him proving it. He is there to hit his sparring partner when his sparring partner misses. Slip and rip, bang, bang, beautiful work. Dresses up his entries, plays with rhythm, pairs the slip with the roll, pairs the roll with the slip. We talk about how when you're in an exchange, when you're in the middle distance, your opponents are likely pairing round and linear attacks. In boxing, that usually looks like hooks and uppercuts, uppercuts and hooks, which means that if you're gonna move your head like James Toney does, you gotta know how to roll into slips, you gotta know how to slip into rolls to keep yourself safe, to continue to make them miss, and put yourself in a position that you can clobber them. I remember when I was younger in my boxing journey, I remember watching tape of guys who were defensive wizards, seeing them on the rope, seeing them make somebody miss dozens of punches. And I don't know what I was looking for, but I was looking for like a pattern. I don't know if their head's making like the alphabet or making like a star sign or something, that I could drill and I could follow. And it wasn't until years later that I understand other concepts in the sport that I was able to recognize that what they're doing is slipping and rolling, rolling and slipping. And that's doing this with a head movement, but it plays out with your feet, it plays out with your obstructive defenses, including your guard as well. This following clip is, I think, the most beautiful sequence in this little documentary here, in this sparring footage here. Let's watch it on full speed, and then we'll break it down. steps into the jab lane, gets out of the way of the 1-2. Again, slips and rolls, rolls and slips. Nice pull counter. He knows how to pair his hooks and uppercuts, whether it's off of opposite hands or whether it's off of the same hand. And he also understands, you can see there, a concept about lane theory that I think is fascinating. So, when you first learn lane theory, you use it to kind of structure your offense. You're like, oh, if I want to clobber somebody with a 3, I need to put him on my right side. Then you start engineering it to keep yourself safe defensively. You start saying to yourself, oh, if this person's on my right side, they can only hit me with a 3. So I need to protect myself from that shot. Once you understand that concept and become familiar with it, you can play with it and you can say, oh, I want to bait out a specific punch here. And eventually you get to a place, I don't know if this is the end of it, this is just where I am in my journey in understanding lane theory, where you can bait out a bad punch. Floyd Mayweather is great at baiting out bad punches. Muhammad Ali is great at baiting out bad punches. James Toney, Triple G, who's the one I'm forgetting? Dwight Muhammad Qawi. These are guys who are really good at getting you to commit to a shot that's worth the risk, and then they punish you for taking that risk. And we're going to explain that with James Toney here as we slow this down, but we got a lot to get through. So slowing this way down, quarter speed here, let's see what we can pick up. Right off the bat, we've got James Toney walking in to his opponent's jab lane. He's playing with rhythm and he stops early and he lets that shot fall short. It hits nothing. He's ready for the 2 coming after it and he gets under that shot. He's ready for the 3 coming after that and he pulls away from that shot. Even though his head's pulling away and he's got his hands down low so that his weight is lower and he can move his head quicker, he still keeps that right elbow tight to his side, always thinking about protecting that liver. He catches that liver shot. He deflects the right hand of his opponent and he uses it, like I said, just like that shoulder roll, just like that pull counter that a lot of half guard guys use to load up his right hand. Gets under. Catches that shot on his shoulder, throws his right hand because he's got his opponent stopped dead when his hand collides with his shoulder, throwing his rear hand. He's square standing in front of him. You'd be silly not to take that shot. So one more time. Catches that shoulder. He's square. Beautiful counter. He rolls under the following shot. Makes him miss a series of shots here, slipping and rolling as his opponent throws uppercuts and hooks. And then when his opponent finally makes physical contact with him and catches James Toney's body, he knows. He doesn't need to see that shot with his eyes. If he can feel that shot on his side, once again, he knows his opponent just threw his right hand, he's square in front of him and he can peel out. 6, 3, pairing hooks and uppercuts. Beautiful work. Rolls out, hits the body, hits the head. So he just went body head, now he's going to throw it in reverse. He goes head body. Creates some space with his shoulder, 3 high, 5 low. Beautiful liver shot there. His opponent walks back, gives him some space. He continues to defend, and you can see he creates traffic with his left shoulder and his left arm, and he baits out a bad 6 from his opponent. This is the same concept with how my fighter Tristan got his knockdown at Golden Gloves this past year. He's got his sparring partner here crossing 3 different lanes to throw that right hand. He has baited him to throw a bad punch. And then if you cross all those lanes, guess what? You're standing square and down a hand in front of James Toney. James Toney's going to hit you with a good punch. So we see a bad 6 and a good 6 because he's got the room and the hips to be able to throw it appropriately. Tape study's hard, and it's easy to get hung up on technique when you're doing it. I remember probably 10 years ago watching James Toney, and It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. You're on Idiot Mountain here, and thinking that he was a bad fighter. I was like, oh, he doesn't pick his hands up. Oh, he hinges at the waist. Oh, his posture's poor. And you can say all of those things, and what's really happening is you're saying, oh, I don't have the bandwidth to accept technique that isn't identical to what I've learned. As time goes on, you learn, of course, technique is important, but the most important thing are the intangibles. Your ability to understand principles, to understand tactics, to understand strategies, to understand and play with systems. When everybody's young, they think, oh, I get so tired jumping rope, I need to get better at swinging my arms faster and tucking my knees. They almost lean into that inefficient technique. They value speed and power and strength, and all of these things are good. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I think we need to equally weight things like understanding rhythm and distancing and timing and balance and pattern recognition. These are things, proprioception, spatial awareness, these are things that somebody like James Toney, somebody like all of the old school guys that have so much familiarity in their actually fighting, understand. Boxing's a lot more like dancing, than it is like American football or track and field. It's not an attribute test, it's a skill test, it's an efficiency test. There is a quality to the movements and the techniques that is kind of an intangible thing to look at. It doesn't always directly correlate to pounds on the bar or inches on a jump. It's like a From Software game. This is a skill issue. You got to get good. Let me know if you like these breakdowns and you like me discussing the sweet science with an example like this. Feel free to link me or send me other sparring footage so that I can continue to do this. Our Road to 100 video series is continuing. Please check it out. Share our videos. Be a part of our journey. I am obsessed with the sweet science. I want to learn everything about it, and I want you folks to be along for the ride. Point me in the right direction so that I can continue to learn and I can continue to educate you folks so you can have success when you fight.